Hey, Warlord backers, fans, and everyone waiting in the wings for the relaunch of the game. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Woodrow Hood from Kingswood Games, and we have a lot going on at Kingswood Games these days. But I wanted to give an update on where the production's at right now for the first Warlord set, Into the Accordlands, and the other items from the Kickstarter. I'll also share a bit about what else we're doing as we work hard to deliver this first product. The first thing I'll discuss is production and delivery timelines, as it's the most requested and pertinent information in this post-campaign stage. So, when we first started the Kickstarter, we expected to be manufacturing shortly after the campaign's end, and we gave an estimated delivery date of October 2024. It was a tight window, but we knew that if things went well, that we got into mass production in the third quarter of last year. It was realistic, mass manufacturing rather, but we didn't. And the reason for that delay was a lot of different factors that all sort of just stacked up. We had been warned by other publishers, of course, that there were a lot of moving parts with producing a collectible card game. And we eventually came to understand that they really meant what they said. It felt like every hill that we climbed had a mountain behind it. And we alluded in previous updates to things like production quality being something that we had to correct time and again. But each adjustment came with a hefty time investment as you get in line for production samples. And then there's all kinds of back and forth that takes place across time zones, and you have to factor in factory schedules. And, being fans of our own game, we weren't satisfied with like a low quality or minimal quality product, just sort of shipping it out the door. We didn't really set out to min-max our margins and deliver something that was not great at a high price, but instead we wanted to make a product that we felt lived up to our own love, our own personal love for Warlord. And so as we went back and forth with our manufacturing partners, we had a hard time nailing down exact dates along the way because things kept changing. We did create timelines, using the information that seemed realistic based on estimates that we were given. And we included what we believed to be enough padding built into it to account for issues that could arise. The precarious part of our forecasting was that if we added additional fall and winter months, it would bring us dangerously close to the Lunar New Year or Chinese New Year. But we never expected to actually end up in a race against this massive months-long holiday. A race that we unfortunately have to accept that we have lost, which brings us to today. We find ourselves both frustrated and internally, and also frustrated on your behalf regarding the delays, and we do recognize that this is bad news for some players and retailers. At this point, we've accepted that we will have to delay our Kickstarter delivery and set release even further into this year. The reason we didn't release this information sooner is because we had previously said that we would not provide fulfillment updates until we had concrete, information and dates to work with. And now at this point, really, we're looking at like May as the earliest realistic time that we can get the Kickstarter fulfilled, with maybe June or July as other possibilities. The reason for this uncertainty is because the Lunar New Year or Chinese New Year puts a pause on basically all manufacturing and production in China. After the holiday, factories are clearing through a backlog of work that the holiday left in its wake. And then, of course, you combine that with a lot of publishers scrambling to get products out the door and manufactured before the end of the fiscal year in the US for tax reasons and to avoid the New Year delays that happen as well. And so it's kind of like all these things get bottlenecked into one small time window, which is where we ended up squarely in the middle of. So if anyone has further questions about fulfillment, feel free to reach out through email to support@kingswood.gg or leave comments below. We are more than happy to provide as much transparency as we can and share details as we have them. Now, that's sort of the bad news, but I do want to highlight that we've been able to accomplish some positive things as well. One of the major positive things we've been able to accomplish is that the product quality overall has gotten so much better than initial samples. As we've gone back and forth throughout the process, we have up-leveled basically every aspect of this first product. I mean, stuff like color saturation, the paper stock, the glue that's used, even the adjusted the card size and all the relevant packaging as well. During that production back and forth, we also spent some time making sure that things like gameplay was updated, mechanics, some card designs, built out some of the art a little bit more, and even small details like packaging all became more polished. And so while we know that this initial audience is there for Warlord, we don't want to just throw out anything to them. We want to show up with something of high quality and then make sure that we can set a standard for ourselves moving forward that we at least meet, if not improve on, time and again. But we needed to do this initial groundwork to make sure that we had a foundation to build on. Because if we just threw something out there and got, a bad reputation for having, flimsy cards and, just whatever other issues there were, we don't want to have that bad reputation. We want to have a reputation for having good quality products. And we know that there's a hunger for a game that has both good quality and that's fun to play. And that's a great combination, because if your game is fun and has a lot of replayability and your stuff is of a good quality, then people can use it for years to come. And that's really what we want. And we also want to, and this is sort of a weird mention, but we just want to be clear that we are not in any danger of failing to produce the game or abandon the project or anything like that. I know that's not an assumption that many people would make, but I just want to be clear about that topic. On the contrary, we are actually already pre-selling in major distributors all over the world and many major distributors in the US. And so all that's to say that there's essentially no risk of the game like failing to launch or, anything like that. Just based on our pre-orders alone and financial backing so far, we are in no danger whatsoever. But despite the delays, we are approaching the final stages of getting the product actually made and sent out to our backers and into retail once the holidays overseas come to an end. And I also just, feel like mentioning that I also am planning to actually physically go and visit our factory, just to make sure that things like assembly, things like collation, all that goes really well. In the end, I want to be able to actually be there, crack packs, look at everything, make sure everything is perfect before it comes out to all of our backers. And just one last thing that I want to highlight is that while Into the Accordlands is the first set that we're producing, and it's taken much longer than we expected, we are already starting to work toward our second and third sets. And those will take a lot less time for us to produce because we've already laid all this groundwork and gone through all these hurdles and initial difficulties. And we don't have to reinvent things like dye lines and choose new Pantone colors and those kind of things. At least for the first sort of 3 product cycle, we'll be able to closely replicate what we did with the first set, which will save us a boatload of time. Okay, now I want to move on to organized play. One of the really attractive things about Warlord's history was its organized play. To be upfront, we didn't actually have the organized play kits ready when we went to Kickstarter beyond some sort of rough ideas. But one of the things that a schedule delay has allowed us is time to get the organized play kits together to make sure that they release alongside or just shortly after the actual retail launch of the game. Which means that the first Overlord, Dragon Lord, and yes, even Medusan Lord are ready for challenging and coming to a location near you at launch. One of the things that we are planning on doing differently, though, and that I'd like to share about is story tie-ins with our organized play. So for anyone unfamiliar with Warlord's organized play or OP system, just very briefly, I'll summarize it for you. At the local game store level, players will earn opportunities to challenge overpowered bosses called Overlords. And if a player wins against an Overlord, they get a copy of the Overlord and its deck. They can then use that Overlord to challenge a regional boss called a Dragon Lord. And the Dragon Lords are truly brutal tests of play skill and preparation, and they require no shortage of luck to beat as well. And if a player wins against a Dragon Lord, they get a copy of the Dragon Lord. And lastly, players who possess a Dragon Lord can then use it to challenge what's called a Medusan Lord. And the Medusan Lords are overpowered one-of-one bosses that are basically impossible to beat, and they only take around 100 challenges before retiring. Now, this was all in place for years and is a huge part of Warlord's history, and we will be continuing that sort of 3-tier ladder. What we're doing differently than Warlord's historic organized play system is that we are going to tie in the game's storyline to the challenges. And what that means is that, sort of like our AEG sister game, Legend of the Five Rings, used to do, we will have story consequences for the challenges. Back in the history of Legend of the Five Rings, they had clans, and let's say that the Lion Clan defeated the Scorpion Clan in a tournament, maybe a high-profile tournament. When that happened, a storyline would be adopted into the world's lore canon that sort of recounted the events of the tournament. And so for our challenge lords, we're going to be doing something similar, but in a way that has a more sort of Warlord feel to it. This means that maybe there are added stakes. So let's say to a Medusa Lord challenge. Maybe we use additional cards that appear throughout the challenge, like side objectives or a captive that needs to be rescued. Or maybe we hinge the fate of something like a group or an important lore character on whether the Medusa Lord is defeated or retired. For Overlords, we'll be partnering with stores to do pre-launch events where the first Warlord, to defeat the Overlord will have a story outcome based on that interaction. Maybe the Warlord defeats the Overlord in the lore, or joins forces with them, or something else entirely. And these kinds of decisions will be a part of the reward for the players who climb the mountains and pass through the valleys and manage to actually beat these difficult bosses. Another thing worth noting about organized play at the store level is that it will be casual friendly. Of course, there will be prizes for top placements, but there will also be quests that every player can complete. As an alternate method of getting things like store promos or the ability to challenge the Overlord that a player who isn't winning a lot might not otherwise get the chance to do. Moving on to Print and Battle, one of the things that we at Kingswood Games feel strongly about with Warlord is that the game is fun to play. We think we've really understood and captured the essence in this first set. And we're seeing mostly positive feedback on card spoilers and updates that we've made in the areas of game design. And so something we felt strongly about was that sharing the ability for everyone to at least try Warlord before launch was an overall good thing. So we came up with the idea of Print and Battle decks. If you haven't checked it out yet, we invite you to do so. You can find them at warlordsots.com/print-and-battle. And what you'll find there are 6 small-sized decks, one of each faction. These are the perfect tools to learn the game with, or demo to your friends, or get a refresher if it's been a while since you last played Warlord. In fact, we feel so strongly about the game being fun and these decks being a good intro point that we're also going to be printing them physically and distributing them for little to no cost. The cards in them aren't rare, and in this day and age where there's so many TCGs, we feel like it's important to give people at least a sample of what we think makes our game so special. And in this case, it's the art, the story, the gameplay itself. Speaking of which, we know that there are a lot of folks out there running demos and sharing news about Warlord's return, and to those folks, we just want to share that we are blown away and thank you for reaching out to your gaming friends and communities. You know, having run countless demos ourselves, it's always a blast to watch people realize that Warlord is not just the same game as other games. It's not one of those sort of one energy per turn TCGs. When people play Warlord, they actually seem to feel something when their back is against the wall and they need clutch die rolls to either finish the game or not lose or something, and the dice either do or don't show up, and they just have these sort of Warlord moments. And so we think, one of the best ambassadors of the game is just getting people to sit down and actually take the time to play it. And so thank you to everybody who has run demos so far or shared about Warlord's return. And that's something we want to make sure and highlight in case anyone missed it, is these Print and Battle decks, especially because we have some time now before launch. Check them out if you haven't already. We really think you'll like them, and share them with your friends and family, whoever you think might be interested in Warlord. That is a great starter, place for them in this time where they can't actually go out and physically buy a copy of the product. Okay, next up is production. And I know we've talked about the products and samples and sort of the back and forth that we've done to ensure quality and all that good stuff. But so far, I don't think anyone has actually ever seen physical copies of any of the packaging or cards or at least nobody that's been free to share those things publicly. So while I have your eyeballs, let's check out some of the cool stuff like the packaging and samples we've received, that kind of thing. And first up, let's talk about starter decks. So I have some right here. I will pull them up either on screen or we'll see what looks better. But here are the, let me pull my camera up and boomer through this OBS. These are the starter decks, and so it comes in a box. Everyone's seen a box of starters before, I'm sure. But it's kind of cool. It's got this little pop-up die line that shows an axe. As I try and fold this in front of the camera, get this down in the back, try our best and potentially fail. Now we got it. We got there. So it's got this pop-up die line with an axe, and it's got, of course, 6 decks, 1 for each faction. Just a reminder that the starter decks each have their 50 card deck, but they also have a booster pack and a D20 in each one. And I really like them. I think they turned out nice. I think they are boxes that I could see, some games when people really love and cherish them stick around, and you have these old packages from, a decade ago that are now really worn and, have that love scratches and love wear and tear on it. I think these will be, of that caliber. I'm really excited to just keep them as storage boxes. I don't think these look so good. These aren't something that you would want to throw away, right? These are nice deck boxes and things that honestly I would use over an actual purchasable product, which I guess I can say since we're not selling deck boxes right now. But no, the starters are really nice. The packaging is really nice on those, and we're really happy with how those turned out. Let's see. I also will grab here. I have a booster box as well. Let me grab that and get this on screen. So this has obviously the meet at the end artwork on it. It's got the same kind of pop-up die line with the axe. It's got some information about challenge lords. That was Sir Tython, who's an old overlord. This wasn't the final image we used. It's got some blurbs about what's inside on the back. Of course, a little spot to talk to retailers, reach out to them, and then a bunch of boring information and don't choke on these parts on the bottom. But the booster box is great, and a thing to remember about it is it's 24 packs per booster box, but it also comes with an additional 80 cards in cellophane that are these warlords, basically starting armies. Warlords, level 2 characters, level 1 characters, and then additional action, item, and character for drafting. So it's everything you need to draft with 8 people in a box on the first box. So if you only ever buy 1 box of Warlord, you can sit down and draft with it, and everybody will have everything they could possibly need. There's essentially no way for them mathematically to not have enough stuff. It would take, I think, maybe 4 or 5 people would need to all draft the same faction, which would not make any sense if you know anything about drafting. We also have 3 different arts of booster packs, and this one's still full, unopened rather, but this has Lord Barrow, one of the warlords. I think he's a rare. And these are just nice packaging. I think it's actually kind of premium compared to other booster packs, in the space. But we have Lord Barrow's art, and then we have 2 more that have already opened. One of them features artwork for Epic Donnybrook, which is probably not spoiled yet, depending on when you see this video, or shows some people kicking other people out of a tavern. It's kind of like wrestling moves, maybe an RKO. And then we have Mare Haven, who is out hunting monsters and heretics in the wilderness. She's on one of the packs. I don't know. I doubt that it matters that I show the UPC. But those are the booster packs, and just a reminder that those are 15 playable cards and 1 ad or token card. And then last up, I have a box of Greed here. Actually, I think I have some other stuff to show as well. But the box of Greed turned out great. Really nice premium storage box that I would be happy to have a lot of, because I like stuff like this. I really like printed, nice, artsy boxes to store my cards in. It's got a little blurb on the bottom. It says "Coin rules everything around me," which I thought was kind of clever. But the Box of Greed was great. I don't know how many of those are going to be floating around. I think that was essentially a Kickstarter exclusive. And it's great for the people that got them. I'm excited to see you all get into Ancients or Alliance or however you're using your Box of Greed. It was a great product for that. And right now, let's see, what else do we have? Let's do Dragon Shield next. So Dragon Shield are actually, they've landed and they are warehoused. And the reason that, I know some people might say, well, you have them, and why not send them to the backers, at least, the people who have already paid for them? The reason is because our fulfillment partners kind of need to package everything all in one way. They've been planning for this for months. They need to package everything all at once and then fulfill it all at once. That's sort of how they operate. And so it wouldn't make any sense. They aren't going to send them out right now. But they have landed, and they look good. The box is perfect for storing Warlord decks, and the sleeves are nice. I'm going to open up this pack right now since it's unopened. But friendly reminder that we recommend Dragon Shield to protect your Warlord cards. Not only are they the best quality, and this isn't like a shill just because we are obviously working with them, but they're literally industry best quality. There's nothing better that you would want to protect your cards with. And they're also really nice from a numbers standpoint because there's 100 cards in one of these packs, right? 100 cards in here, or 100 sleeves rather, which cover 2 decks, because remember the minimum deck building quantity for Warlord deck is 50 cards. And so 1 pack of Dragon Shield sleeves will cover 2 decks, and that is wonderful. And here is Vactus, all the Vactuses, Vacti, I think at that point. And he looks great. These are really, really, really nice sleeves. Didn't expect anything less from Dragon Shield. And so we're really excited to get those out. Those were not Kickstarter exclusive. Those will be in distribution on launch, and we're excited to get them in front of you all. What else do I have here? It looks like, let's see, I don't have anything on hand that I really want to show off right now other than those. I do want to mention that playmats are also ready. So those are just, again, being warehoused, and once everybody's stuff gets sent out, playmats will be included. Once a fulfillment actually takes place on large scale. Last but not least, I want to take a minute to talk about the future. I know that the production delays might cast some doubt on our ability to deliver 3 sets a year moving forward. But I really want to reiterate that this first sort of back and forth with the factory, getting all the production, everything right, is kind of an anomaly because we are first timers. We're first time publishers. It took some time to learn how to be publishers and learn how to communicate effectively with the manufacturer and iron all these things out. And we just, we want the best quality product possible, and we want to get it in a timely manner. And it was really hard to do both of those things at the same time as a first time publisher. But we know that moving forward, we won't have the same issues. We know there's a long history of games, or rather companies, going through Kickstarter and getting hit with massive delays that they didn't predict. And our experience has definitely not, abandoned that narrative. We fell into the same kind of traps that a lot of people do, I think. The silver lining here for us is that if we are going to be late on a set, the first set is actually not the worst one to be late on. What I mean by this is that our current plan moving forward is to deliver 3 sets a year, and that has not changed at all, despite our initial speed bumps in this first offering. Once that schedule starts, though, if we were to be like a couple months late, let's say, maybe 3 months late with a product, it would throw everything out of whack. I mean, imagine a scenario where like a set comes out, and then 3 weeks later, the next set comes out. and all of a sudden everything is just hitting at once. The marketing, you can't possibly digest that first set in 3 weeks, and there's just no space, and everything gets thrown off, and so it's like it causes a pile up. But being late with this initial set, while it's not ideal, it is kind of probably the best set once you're on a rotation schedule like that to be late with. And also, having all these production delays have actually afforded us some time to plan for the future and for the next several sets to come. And we still plan on doing 1 large and 2 medium sets in every 12-month period, or essentially every year. And we feel good about this schedule, and we still think it's sort of the sweet spot for card games. 4 months gives players time to actually take in a set, explore it, digest it, and look at the content and the card pool in whole, like not just rushing through it or being bored. 4 months is not so long that boredom sets in, but it's also not the standard approach that sort of a lot of companies have adopted, that just pump out product as quickly as possible at a pace where their audience, if they so much as blink, they'll miss out on something and feel way behind. And so we do, though, also plan to release other supplemental products, in between sets, things like at-home PvE, maybe 1 product per cycle, so sort of like per 3-set rotation, and maybe some other boutique decks or card sets in between. But I'm sharing all that to say that we are in this for the long haul. We grew up on Warlord, personally, and it has been a lifelong hobby for us. And we've had the pleasure of making close friendships, traveling to large Warlord events, and now even teaching Warlord to our own children, which is kind of wild to think about. But while we're, of course, trying to deliver the best product possible, maybe the thing that gets us the most excited about Warlord is the great memories that we know this game can create, because we've experienced them firsthand. And we absolutely cannot wait. We cannot wait to bring these moments to the next generation of card gamer, and for many years to come. And I think that's a good note to end on for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll be sharing more updates about production and fulfillment here on Kickstarter, and potentially on our socials as well, at Warlord CCG, as soon as they become available. Thank you again.